Mrs. Burman, you want to say something before we start this? Yes, over to you,
So,
please.
yeah, thank you so much. And first of all, and really, really humbled and great pleasure to be here. I always say this, and I am going to repeat myself. I love being on the IPN platform, one, because of Gaurav. And to a large extent, in fact, the whole idea of IPN, though he had conceived it earlier, but then we discussed it, and probably that push was there in my office. We were together. And ever since, been in touch. So that's one reason. More than that, I think I just love the formula, which is something I not only tell Gaurav, I tell this to everyone else that I meet in the education, in the academic field, because according to me, India doesn't only live in Delhi. That's one. India doesn't only live in the first tier and two tier towns of the country. It's spread all over from the semi-rural areas to the three-tier, four-tier towns. And the beauty of IPN is it's spread all over. So it's not to say that people in the metro towns don't matter. Of course they do. They're also very close to policymakers. So of course their thoughts matter a lot. But it's also important to sometimes look inwards into the whole country because that's where India really lives. And their problems sometimes don't reach the policymakers. So it is platforms like IPN that make this possible. So more power to you, Gaurav, and kudos to you. I love it. And I would really want, I'm speaking now on behalf of IPN and Gaurav, the more you can spread this word, the more people, kind of join this movement, is what I would say. A revolution is what I would say. There is so much we can gain from each other. And there's one more thing that I want to share. It just came to my mind. I never actually thought about this earlier. But in a lot of the organizations, there are something called the exchange programs. So I know we can't, it's not very, very easy for us to do an exchange program under IPN because a lot of different schools and varied schools are there. But when it comes to any of us being a member of IPN, you want to send a set of your children, a set of your teachers to one of the schools for 4 5 days, if they can give you accommodation, etc. There are very varied ways of accommodation. You can even make your children sleep inside classrooms by making provisions. I think that's the best way of learning. Your children, you, your teachers, the more we travel to each other's schools, see best practices, I think that's the best way of learning. So, I mean, before I begin anything else, I thought I wanted to kind of just put the seed of this thought in everyone's mind. And I am open to any kind of exchange. In fact, at any time in the given in the year, so many people are traveling from all our different campuses that it's actually become difficult for me to keep a count now. But it matters and it helps, is all that I want to say. And as far as Sunbeam is concerned, just to put the statistics right, we have 24 campuses. Nine are our own in Varanasi. The rest are in Eastern UP in very three-tier, four-tier towns. So I travel to these places and I know where the shoe pinches. So I'm talking out of experience there. Over to you, Gaurav.
No, no, absolutely. In fact, I was wanted to say, which you really said it beautifully, that in fact, Sunbeam is a great institution, friends and leaders. And I'm not saying this purely because Mrs. Burman is here. I mean, I have been visiting the institution. I've seen the kind of practices they really, and they're just based in Varanasi. And I always say this wherever I get the chance that it is not where you are based that matters. It's precisely what you aim to do wherever you are based, actually. And that's what I think leaders like Mrs. Burman being there, and she's been there for almost, I think, 3 odd decades in that institution. So fabulous. As I said, I may possibly short fall of words in terms of the kind of practices. They have brilliant practices around everything, teacher training, I mean, their quizzing teams is unbeatable across the country, travels, and I mean, just sheer hospitality of it. You learn so much out of it. In fact, I was there a couple of days ago, in fact, and the kind of uh, finer details they keep in mind. An example, before we even started our quiz, I have never seen in any institution the team meticulously pointing out the exit plan. or the example, if there is any kind of calamity, before you even start this, guys, this is how we will exit this place example. Beautiful, absolutely wonderful, in fact. And as Mrs. Burman has beautifully said, that if you are ever in Varanasi, just give her a ring, and that she'll be great host to all of you. Right. So, on that note, we will quickly begin this conversation. And Mrs. Burman, as I told you, my first question will remain very, very fundamental, which is give us a roundup of how, as per you, right, this year 2024 for school education uh, was all about, example, right? So, we'll start with that, please.
So I'm going to be obviously beginning about our own journey, and I've been meeting a lot of educators across the country and the world, and I think it's pretty much the same. So before I begin, I just want to say that most of the countries all over, believe me, we face similar issues, and our priorities are quite similar. Okay, so don't think that you're alone in anything. And again, the reason why I'm saying this is you can just probably point out to anyone, or go to anyone, I would say, and everybody's in the same storm and in the same boat, and you'll get help from anywhere. So don't think that you're isolated. We are all in it together. Having said that, one of the most important things that I personally, I mean, for Sunbeam, we felt was we became even better in hybrid. And in my top 10 priorities, I did mention this, and I think I'm going to continuously keep mentioning it for some time till we master it. But this year, we've been more relaxed. We've been better on the hybrid model, and that's really helped us. We've got the right balance. Even till last year, I didn't know how many days should we go online, how should we go online, because there were a lot of comments from parents, from teachers. So now we know that during the regular school, which classes should go online, who are the ones it really doesn't work for, and how should we then keep the machinery oiled, and I'll tell you why. And at the same time, and how to get that balance right. With that, we've also become even a better all-weather school. And I'm actually emphasizing on this. It may seem, oh God, it's so hackneyed. Why are you talking about online at this time? COVID is past gone. Today, if somebody would tell us or our systems, get rid of online, I think all my teachers are going to just look aghast and say, oh God, but we need it. And why? We need it because once we become, an all-weather school, the previous pressure of schools suddenly closing down, teachers obviously wondering how to teach the children, how to reach out to them, parents wondering, no routine in my child's life. And then the worst thing is when the children would come back, it was like, I want to complete my courses. I somehow want to do it. And there would never be concept clarity. So just connecting the dots. As an institution for us, it's always been, and even now, the top priority is it's never about completing a course. It's about concept clarity. It's about teaching children right. And in that, online has helped us. So today, if suddenly, and we're already talking about it to parents when we meet them, that possibly January is not going to be a very happy month when it comes to children coming to school, the way things are, being predicted. So everyone knows that we will be going online the day maybe the TM or the government announces that schools would not reopen on the date that's already been announced. So getting into the hybrid mode has still been our top priority, and it has really, really helped us. And we've kind of found the balance this year. If you ask me what was your top, something that really made you happy, I think we found the balance quite beautifully. And in that balance, I must mention, even the parents have been quite happy. We've taken a very important stakeholder with us, because still now, after COVID, it was like, I just don't want to see my children on the online mode for various reasons, which we will discuss and many of you all know. So we've got that beautiful balance. I think that's been one of our biggest achievements. The other thing is, with COVID and with NEP, and especially with NEP, I think there have been the implementation of NEP has been kind of rolling ever since 2000, say 21. The NEP came up in 2020, and then it's been rolled out every year. So every year there's something exciting that's come up. So for the past 2 years, we've been discussing a few things and we've implemented them. Okay, so if I talk about the few things that we've really done well and been excited about, one is the holistic progress card. The HPC is something we have worked on. And I can't tell you how excited the parents have been with the HPC rolled out to them, with their involvement in the progression of the school, sorry, of their child, the assessment of their child, the holistic development of their child has truly come up so beautifully with the holistic progress card. We've done it from nursery right up to class 2, moving on to up to class 3, though the CBSC and the NEP says that you're supposed to go all the way till the senior classes, but we haven't really mastered it till that level. And I didn't want to just do it because it was a mandate or a guideline. I wanted to do it taking all stakeholders in, getting the whole institution primed about the holistic progress card. And we've kind of, again, done it beautifully till class 2, moving on to 3. So it's going to be a succession. Maybe we'll go a few steps quicker so that we can cover up the school a little faster. But holistic progress card has been one of the most exciting things, where there's been peer assessment, there's been, of course, teacher assessment, there's been self-assessment, and there's been parent assessment. So everybody has been assessing the child so beautifully that the parents connect with the child at that age in particular, where they knew that we can talk about our child, but they didn't know exactly where to kind of, pinpoint and check where is it that the child needs more help, or what has been the progress of the child. So that's really helped. So HPC has been one big achievement. Connected to HPC has been another thing that the government has spoken about and CBSE has spoken about, the NEP has spoken about, was the e-portfolios. And we've got e-portfolios. It came by default in the HPC till class 2, but we've now got it all the way till class 12. The little ones have also got trained. Parents have been brought on board, because you can't expect a class 3 or a class 4 child to make a portfolio for himself. And the best part is we've managed to tell children the importance of their portfolio connected to pen, the DigiLocker, the academic bank of credit, why it's important. So we are still in the process, but we have really moved ahead. And children with their parents and teachers have been building some beautiful portfolios where it gets connected to their career guidance, okay, and their careers. And the moment children understand that the portfolio has an impact on your career, they have been like designing some beautiful portfolios where they know what's priority, what should come in and what should not. Now, according to me, I take that as a big achievement, because children usually did not know how to build their own portfolios. So from nursery right up to class 12, if you build your portfolio beautifully, your future is positively going to be very bright, because people are going to look at you from a different point of view altogether. So the purpose of it has also been said. So I think that has been another great, great achievement that we've had, and a great working that we've done. The other thing is, already there was a lot of talk, but we have still continued building on the skills of students. It's not about completing your course, as I mentioned in the beginning. It's about the content just being a tool or a wire media of building skills in children so that they learn for life. Their lifelong learning has to be secured through all the skills, which is nothing new to us. When we talk about competencies, when we talk about creative thinking, we talk about problem solving, we've spoken about collaboration. How are you building these skills? And I'm going to add to it, how do you do it in the classroom? How do you question so that children are pushed to build skills? How are your question papers and with the question that you ask in a written form, or what you do orally with the children in the class? How is that getting unfolded? And connected to that is the teacher training for competency building and skill building. So if the teachers are not trained, they cannot ask the right questions. They cannot use the content as a tool to increase the competencies and the skills in the children. And I think that is possibly the most important thing and the biggest debate in education today, that how important is content? Is content the master, or is it something else? Positively, it is skill building, which is more important than just the content, because we will be discussing AI in a little while. And AI has made content so much easily available to children. Yet, children are coming back to school. So, obviously, the teachers need to be doing something right if you want the children to keep coming back to you and you being relevant as teachers and schools in future when it comes to children. So, I think competency and skill building is very, very, very important. One of the last few things that I wanted to mention is the National Credit Framework. That's another thing that came from CBSC, and we worked on the National Credit Framework. In fact, even before the final, National Credit Framework was sent by CBSC to us, there was a webinar that was done. I entered the webinar, we spoke about it, and we've been discussing a lot of National Curriculum Framework. In fact, I've been taking some trainings on the National Curriculum Framework because I read through the whole thing, kind of understood what is needed in National Curriculum Framework, and built a credit system for the school. And it is going to be out, a part of our assessment report card in the finals. And the National Credit Framework is something that we've taken sessions again with the teachers, with the students, and more importantly, with the parents. They have understood the importance of credit. Connected to the credit framework also comes attendance. They understand that if they want good credits for their children, actually two things are very important. One is to pass in a subject, which according to me, at any of our schools is not really the biggest concern. Children manage to pass. Teachers work hard to make that happen. But what all of us struggle with is attendance in the school. So attendance has become much, much, much better because they understand that they need 75% attendance at least to get their credits right. And if they don't give 75% attendance, we are strict in not giving them the credit because that's the way CBSE wants it to be done. So the National Credit Framework is another thing that we worked on in largely. We've really, really made everybody, all stakeholders, a part of it. One of the last things, and I'm sure certain things more will come, and I may remember in the course of our discussion, still for us at Sunbeam, teacher training, leadership has been one of the biggest things. And we have invested and realized that the difference that has come up in the classrooms has been through the biggest catalyst of change, which is the teacher. So investing in your teachers is something that can never go a waste. Or for the management, investing in the leaders can never ever go a waste. So teacher training, leadership training has been great. One or two things which I didn't really write but has struck me and I want to speak about it. I mentioned and I'm repeating, it's not only the training, it's the travel. Our teams travel a lot. When I say teams, I don't mean for competitions, for learning. My children, my teachers, and my leaders, they travel a lot. And even for me personally, besides attending sessions to learn, my travel has really been an eye opener. So I really, even today, recommend and keep travel of the teachers, training of the teachers and leaders absolutely at the topmost if you want to make any difference to your institution. Uh, just one or two other things. Challenges. We'll speak about AI a little later, but a big challenge has been adapting and adopting to AI. So when it comes to the year gone by, the challenge has been that. The other challenge has been absenteeism of students, which I told you, because we found it as a challenge, we've been working on it. We've kind of tried to arrest it as much as we can, have understood that till we don't train ourselves, till we don't learn what's different, till we don't learn what makes children excited, we don't make ourselves relevant. Until we are not relevant, absenteeism is going to be a big concern for all schools in the country. It is, and let's work very strictly and closely on it. Let's make ourselves relevant by learning ourselves and implementing things. And the last two things when it comes to the challenges has been one, mental health. It's still a major issue with AI and technology and digital addiction of the children. Mental health has still been a major concern, and I think it's only growing. A lot of training on that front is really needed. Social emotional learning should be the top priority of all schools and educators, because children are actually facing it a lot, and I don't know whether they're really ready to talk about it and open up. So we need to give them that space and an environment in the school to come up and speak about any mental issues that they are having. And the second last thing. The second last thing is, even now, despite COVID having gone a little too back, and we don't really talk about it, the gaps that it left, remediation, even today, has been a large priority of the school. We have been remediating with students because either it's been the mental health that has still taken them back, or it's the fact that there were some slow learners who are still trying to grapple with what is going on in different subjects or in the school. So, remediation has been very, very importantly dealt with even in this year. And one thing that I'm really looking forward to has been a circular, just a few, I think a few weeks back, or maybe just a few days back. I'm really excited about the circular which spoke about course A and B in science and in social studies. We had it in maths. I think it has impacted. And with science and social science also being offered as a course A and course B by CBSE, that's something I'm looking forward to. And we have been already in this session begun to talk about it and discuss it. So these are the few things that have been exciting in this year, Gaurav.
Fantastic, fantastic. Quite a spectrum, if I may say. I'll quickly pick up a couple of things, uh, and I think which will hold a lot of relevance to all of us, which is the relevance word which you used, actually, the relevancy of teacher, right? And therefore, quickly bringing in the AI element to this, how do you see, Mrs. Burman, the entire relevancy of what we do as an educator, right, being challenged by AI, right? So we're not technologists. Our definition of AI is very, very different. I work very closely with a lot of leaders now, and their understanding of AI is broadly right now to be on the fence. Let us see how this is unfolding. And one final thing, which I believe I leave it to everybody to ponder on. Uh, I think it's almost 24 hours ago, Oxford University came out with the word of the year,
Yeah.
which is every year
Brain
they
rot.
come with the word. Brain rot
Brain
is the word which they have chosen.
Yeah.
And I would want actually everybody to go back, figure out what is brain rot, and then you'll figure out that what is really happening with it for that matter, right? So I would therefore go back to you, Mrs. Burman, about the relevancy piece. And obviously, I think it's been challenged today. And yes, how you as a leader see it right now, your views.
Right. So before I actually come to AI, since we mentioned relevance,
Correct.
I will speak about AI, of course. I think to make yourself relevant in a classroom, yes, technology, etc., is very important. But before technology, it's the connect with the child. The moment you meet your child, do you really connect with the child? And how do you really get to connect with the child? It's not just about those icebreakers and the energizers and all that we have been speaking about, which is still very relevant and very important, because research says you have to do that and it makes sense. But I think what's very important is, are we speaking the language of the children? Sometimes we as adults don't know, even I wouldn't know. But sometimes you just have to get up and learn what is it that the children really connect with. So in case it's a Coldplay show that's coming up, which is the buzz with the kids. Now, if we don't know about whatever Coldplay, or we don't know about Daljit Dosanjh,
Absolutely,
he's
yes.
having, or who's there in cricket, and frankly, more than cricket, actually soccer interests the children a lot these
Correct.
days. Now, are we really following these things? Do we come into the class and talk to children about what happened yesterday in a match? Or what was it that, how can you get the tickets of a Coldplay? Have you done a little bit of research? Okay, children, try if you're wanting to go sit with so many devices, etc., etc. So it's what do we speak the language that the children want to? The moment you speak their language, they connect with you immediately. It is only those teachers' classes that children come for, believe me. They probably have already decided that I have these 7 periods today. This and this is the interesting one, the rest I'm going to sleep in. Okay. So it is important for us to make our classes exciting by speaking the language of the children. One. The other way of connecting, even today, is that love and affection, that hug, physical, mental, making children feel that you're there the day they need you by talking to them, etc., etc. And I want to tell one very important thing that we do face in the education scenario, which is if a child does come to you and speak to you, it is between you and the child. It cannot become a topic of gossip in the staff room. You can discuss issues because you want to help a child. You can discuss with the counselor because you want to help the child, or even connect with the parents if you feel it is needed. But it cannot become a topic of gossip. I think if we just maintain a few of our things right as teachers, it's that's what relevance is all about. Another last thing that I remembered before I come to the AI part. How do you come to school? Are you the best role model? Even with your dress. If you are well dressed to school, you give this message to the child that he or she is important in your life. You are excited. You know that the importance of the school is connected to the importance of the child. If you just feel that, it's only a job. No, no, no. It's a commitment. And when you take something as a commitment, you will take that very seriously. So these are just things that come to my mind, and I thought I'll be speaking about it. Coming to AI, it's very important for us today, and I know it's tough to know technology well. One part is technology, the other is generative AI, because it is very, very fast moving. I think it's far more fast moving than what we could ever imagine. It's going at the speed that you know something today and it becomes irrelevant tomorrow because suddenly there's something new. Just keeping pace with it becomes very difficult. So, how do you keep yourself relevant in this age of AI? I think it's important to, number one, accept it. There are still some people in denial of the existence of artificial intelligence. They feel this will come and it'll go. Everybody knows it's here to stay. It's very, very all pervasive, and it's not going to go. It's only going to become more and more deep rooted into our lives and the lives of the children. Just the way, if you adapt to it, if you learn it, you will realize that it is going to make your life as a teacher far, far easier. Similarly, the child also knows much better than you do that it's going to make his work much easier. An assignment not done through the help of AI will take longer. He'll have to apply his brains a little more. But if he does it with the help of an AI, he does it in a jiffy and gets time to do other things. So, as a teacher, have we really adapted to it, learned it, used it, brought it to the class, told the children? Don't feel shy about it. Tell the children that you've used artificial intelligence. They'll love you for it because they then feel that this teacher knows what is happening in our world, uses the tools that we know how to use, and he or she is very, very cool, therefore. You need to be that cool teacher who uses AI well. Make your lesson plans through AI. They are very interesting. They are quicker. They will give you better ideas than what you could think of. And you can build on those ideas, because only when you use your own mind to what AI has done, you don't have what is now Oxford talking about, brain rot. When you depend too much on AI, then it is a problem. So you have to work with AI and sometimes work over AI and push your own minds in making yourself relevant. Use the AI to get in some good sources and resources into the classroom. If you have your smart boards, which a lot of schools have today, get the right kind of enactments when it comes to history. Get the right kind of, activities or work, I would say, for the children to do. Give them something. Tell them to use AI and work more on it and bring it back. And when they bring it back, having learned, done it through AI, challenge them. No AI in the class now. Come on, let's make it better. Then it is, not only a challenge to the children will get that confidence that AI is not the end of the world. There is more than AI, and their brains can be working better than AI. I hope I'm being able to explain it. Sometimes you work on AI, challenge yourself to better it. At the same time, when you've designed something, give it to the kids and ask them to challenge their mind to better what has come out of AI. Another place I think where AI works beautifully is assessments. There are times when the best also just come to their wits' end and wondering, how many questions can I make? How many different competency based questions of different levels can I make? AI really helps you. Again, talk about it to the students so that the students know that my teacher knows how to work on AI. And if you work on it, you save time. Time saving can give you time to connect with your students even better, because otherwise you're going to just get burnt out. So if technology is around, learn to use it in the right way and be that cool teacher. When you do your assessments well and you do the analysis of it well, personalized teaching again connects you much, much better with your child, because there are differences in a classroom. AI will help you handle and tackle with this problem better. And in one way that we've really, really worked with our stakeholders is through AI, sending our forms out, making the best use of things, getting our feedback from all stakeholders, doing the analysis. And with this feedback and instant work on it, we have been able to arrest a lot of problems which may have become much bigger, but we could nip it at the bud. So I think using artificial intelligence is only going to make you into a cool teacher. And the coolest teacher is when the teacher says, I've used it, but I have a better exercise from you for you than what AI has generated. This is something I have generated. It is not through AI. Children, I want you to do the same. Don't be over dependent on it. Nothing can beat your own brains, is the message we need to always keep telling our students. Got it.
Absolutely. If you're not motivated still, then you have to go for Coldplay for that matter, right? Yes, but having said this, great points, Mrs. Burman. I'll just have one final question, which is my question, and then we'll open up the house for Q&A. I think spoken a lot of optimism. I think that's your inherent personality. I know that you see opportunity in everything what you do for that matter. But still, if we have to be a little pessimistic example and want to see a few challenges ahead or see areas of improvement which school education needs to see example, right, in totality, what those will be example? Over to you again. Yeah.
So there are obviously challenges. Everything is not as hunky dory and rosy as
Correct.
I may have made it sound. And you're right, the way you would look at things in a very positive way. There are challenges of misuse. There are challenges of brain rot. So this word has come up not with no relevance to it in when it comes to today, because it is very difficult at times to really find out whether AI has been used, though there are a lot of different ways now, but not everybody is apt at using those ways to find out whether a piece which has been given of creative writing to the child, has the child really written it on his own, or he's just used AI, and what should have been a push to the brain, what should have been creativity coming up, has just been copied and pasted from AI directly. So misuse is a big issue. Excessive use, or I think, look, let's not say excessive, because if it's excessive use, then it's probably a reason for parents to be upset. But because of the addiction that the children are getting into, because AI has made things difficult, easier for them, they're finding, time to just kind of scroll and do nothing, which brain rot is all about, that you're just scrolling and there's no application of mind. Parents are coming up even now, up in arms and saying, we need to stop this. And sometimes when you want to do something which is interesting and nice, children don't do it because they say, my parents didn't allow us to use the device at all. So I think it's from one end of the gamut to the other end of the gamut, which is also a challenge for most of the school leaders today. That's another issue. Addiction to the devices, therefore, have also really gone really up. So, for example, we have devised our own curriculum on digital de-addiction, how to do what you have to do
Right.
to not get tempted and kind of sucked into your devices, and what could be done away from a device to make life a little bit more easy and entertaining for the children. Lack of creativity, as I mentioned, and over dependence on technology and AI has been a big challenge. Because of this, and because of the addiction, there's also been a lot of issues in the past few months, the year, of cyberbullying. It's a
Hmm.
huge issue. Children could easily manage it earlier because they could work their way around. Now it's coming up in such challenging ways that children just don't know how to handle cyberbullying. So that has become a big a challenge for schools to talk about cyberbullying very openly, telling them the not only they already know that there are pitfalls to it, also how to work around it. If you really see that you're being groomed, there is cyberbullying, etc., please let the school immediately know, or let your parents know, let an elder know. Don't just get sucked into because somebody behind the a screen is trying to scare you into not mentioning about it. So cyberbullying and working for children to get saved out of that has also been another issue. Data privacy, big issue. The more children are getting hooked onto social media and different devices, because AI is making it much easier for them, there is an issue of data privacy. Everybody is getting into everything of yours because you've got everything outside in the virtual world. So data privacy has become another major issue. Another thing is, even today, teachers' acceptance and teachers' readiness to learn is still a challenge, because you have all age level teachers. The ones who are comparatively older still are scared, though we've got a system of peer hand holding. The younger ones help the older ones, but it doesn't really help completely, because if you're kind of blocked, if you're scared, if you haven't done it, then to open your screens and start learning is not something that is going to come so easy to a generation which is a little older. So that resistance to learn is still there. And of course, it's so fast moving that if you somehow manage to learn something, you suddenly realize that it's irrelevant. Then you wonder, क्या भाई को और नहीं सीखना, मैंने बहुत कर लिया. So this resistance is still happening. So if you want experience and technology to get married to each other, it gets a little bit of an issue even now. Plus, at the same time, laws. must be understood very, very well when it comes to technology, because there are new laws that have come in. We must understand the laws which guide us. How much of the data can we put out in the open, because we are using so many apps, we're using so many third party interventions are happening. Everybody's got data. Tomorrow somebody may come and sue me, telling me that my data has gone out because of you. So I need to be respectful for that, and I need to know the law very well. Once I know the law well, I need to work on school policies when it comes to technology, AI usage, mobile usage. So we've worked a lot throughout the year on making a lot of policies which are relevant, which have been printed, which have been shared with parents, that this is the school policy. And, we have to stick and work within the confines of these policies, so that we are also legally we have to save ourselves. That's also very important for schools. So knowing the law and working on policies has also been a challenge, and we've tried to work a little bit towards that. And therefore, I think investment in secure, scalable, and inclusive technology and AI solutions working around it has really been one of the biggest challenge. And I don't think it's going to get over with too soon, because things are changing too fast. Just keeping up with them has become a huge challenge for schools. So yes, the challenges are there, and they are huge. Let me tell you, they are huge.
No, absolutely. In fact, right. So we all have heard this digital arrest thing, which is happening. Cyber is going to be a massive problem. And in fact, not just for schools, this is in general, the kind of frauds which are happening, the kinds of, every day we are hearing new news around this for that matter. I think what Mrs. Burman is pointing out is that having that kind of framework for your institution, what to do, what not to do, is now the time where schools will have to make that investments. I know it will be a difficult road. It will be a very evolving, as I think Mrs. Burman pointed out, right? But we'll have to do that, as simple as that. So perfect. That left us with another sort of 13 minutes now, and I would not really get into any further questions from my side. I open this house for Q&A. Please, if you have any question, give us a virtual show of hand. We'll help you unmute, and then we can have your question for us, right? Virtual show of hand means virtual show of hand, by the way. So, but I saw your hand, which is Miss Kiran Kesar, which is your real hand. That is not. Go ahead. Yeah, please. Then you'll have to unmute yourself now.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. This is my real hand because I have the real questions. Ma'am, usage of AI also where we have the lack of creativity. But I think with the usage of AI, we have the means extra creativity, mixing of creativity.
So I don't know whether that's a question or it's a comment, but just to add to it, I really didn't mean, or I don't know whether I communicated this thought that there is no creativity with AI. Yes, what you have in your mind, AI takes it to the next level, but at the same time, you tend to get so dependent on the AI, because this happens, frankly, even with me, and I have to push myself that no, use AI a little less, or what is coming from AI, you need to take that to the next level. That means you add to what is coming out of AI, because the over dependence on AI can really make your gray cells not work. What happens is the more you get addicted, the lesser you challenge your own mind. Let me give you an example. Previously, if there was something, let's say a notice, a communication to parents, which is something we all do, right? There used to be a time when all of us used to put our brains into writing every word of it and, seeing to it that it reaches out in the right way. And I think there was some sort of a heart and a soul in that kind of a communication. Today, I've got it back now in the institution. Today, we would just put a few prompts into AI and tell them, write a notice which is around this and this and this, and just give them the right. So it's all about prompt engineering, the right questioning. And lo, you get one notice. which is very well worded, which has got the grammar right. But I think sometimes the soul is missing. Because what
Yes,
you say
that's
out of
right.
your own mind
Yes,
will
ma'am. That
drive.
exact words actually when we want to write a notice,
Yes.
for specific our stakeholders, that really miss.
Yes. So that's what I'm trying to say. So somewhere I'm not at all against using AI. I would
Hmm.
say let something get generated out of AI, but let's all of us, including our children, be in the habit of being critical to what the AI is generating. Don't just take anything that comes out of AI as the gospel truth or the right way, because actually sometimes or most of the times it's not.
Hmm. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Gaurav ji, may I? Gaurav ji, may I ask the question?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am. I
ma'am.
think Gaurav sir is on mute.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. आभा जी आप पहले
Okay.
फिर नीना आपका question.
Okay.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Ma'am, my basic question is it's not pertaining to AI. It's pertaining to teachers training. Ma'am, as you said that you have been investing more and more into this, we all are doing somehow or the other. It may be financially or emotionally, but ma'am, the fact is, I'm unable to follow up the training part in the teachers. Like that follow up is missing somewhere, in spite of all the activities done and everything. And even after investing so much, I have found my teachers not staying with us, so that part I'm unable to control. How to go about that?
Okay. So, this is a question that comes up every time, everywhere, that about. One is attrition, teacher attrition, and
Yeah.
stability,
Yes.
and follow up, because everybody gets so involved into everyday operations, which is an issue. I think your training will be useful if your start point is a need analysis. You must know what is the need of your institution. What happens is, if there is no particular framework within which you want to work when it comes to training, you can really go disarray. It can just go all over the place. So sit with your team or ask your teachers to let you know what is it that they really need, what is missing, or what is a challenge.
Yes, ma'am.
Once you'll have decided what is a challenge, prioritize your challenge, because different people will
Ma'am.
have different challenges, and prioritize your challenge. And every year you can't be doing in a year, sorry, you can't be doing everything.
Yes,
There
ma'am.
may be two or three things that you decide, this is the biggest challenge in the institution. I need to work on this along with my team. We're going to do maybe 4 trainings, 5 trainings, but only on this particular topic, depending on which blocks you want to work in,
Yes,
because
ma'am.
training may be relevant in the
Primary section.
foundational years. Certain things are relevant in the senior classes, etc.
Ma'am.
Okay, so once you got your need analysis done and decided on the priority of the challenges and worked towards that, you will see that everybody is going to be excited in getting it done, because number one, they know it has come from them. My principal has asked me, and I have said that this is what I need, and she's providing this to me.
Yes.
There is a sense of attachment, commitment to something that I have asked for, and I've been given that. So implementation to some extent will be, in any case, will be handled, because they'll use what they get trained on. The other thing is, despite your being very busy when it comes to operations, you
Yes,
have
ma'am.
to delegate certain things to other people,
Yes.
and do have meetings as often as you can, or go to the classes, or have your own mechanism to check out and see
Yes.
all that has been all that has been taught, has it been implemented or no. Training cannot just become an event.
Yes, ma'am.
A complete journey that you have to keep doing till
Mhm.
you come to the end that you wanted to, which doesn't happen in a year, ma'am. It
Yes, ma'am.
happen maybe in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, till it gets embedded and becomes a culture of the school. It is
Yes.
only then that the training is relevant. So too much is not a very good idea. So when I say We do a lot of training. We have discussed and decided which age group, which block needs what, and there is continuous training on that. Till we make a difference, we don't stop.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. This is the practical approach. I've been doing it, but somehow, like you said, the time span. I am patient now. I'll be waiting for another 2 to 3 years. Let's see what happens. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so
There's
much.
one more, but I do want to answer that question of
Yes,
your
ma'am.
attrition.
Yes, ma'am. That is the most important part.
Don't get worried. People will come, people will go. And somebody very beautifully once said that if you invest in someone, the chances are less that they will go because they understand that you value them, number one. So there are less chances. But imagine if because of this fear, you don't invest in your teachers and they are in your classes, so you have a, I won't say bad, but you have an untrained teacher
Yes,
getting,
ma'am.
so what are the children getting impacted with?
This is what I'm afraid of, actually. This is really what I'm afraid of.
So don't be afraid of people moving on. Just work
Yes,
towards
ma'am.
training. It helps, let me tell
Thank
you.
you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Miss Nina, your question.
Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, my question is regarding the latest circular of CBSE, where they have mentioned about the advanced science. Suppose a child opted for advanced science, then he or she will be eligible to take physics, chemistry, biology in classes 11th or 12th, those who have not opted for advanced science will also be eligible for physics, chemistry, maths.
So I am not really in a position to give you that answer because CBSC and I think the universities have to take this decision. The only thing I can tell you is that I remember when we started with maths, standard and basic, this was a huge question. Can I further study maths after doing basic maths? For 1 or 2 years, they had a problem. Okay. They were not taking children with basic maths into Delhi University in particular. And Delhi University, being Delhi University, a lot of the other universities follow them in whatever formula they adopt. Finally, they allowed. They said that if you have a maths which is basic, you could further study maths because they felt that children, if they are capable and can manage, why should they not give it to them? So, coming back to science and social science, I really don't know which way it will go. But I think children who are absolutely committed to taking up humanities would like to go in for the advanced course. Children who are committed to taking up science as their career will want to go in for the advanced. So if I want to do humanities, I may feel I want to do science till class 10, but I just want to go in for basic, which is enough for a knowledge that I need to have or something that I would impact me in my everyday work. More than that, why should I do? So I'm not very sure, but I think it'll unfold. The way maths unfolded with time, this
Yes.
will also unfold with time.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Because this question might come from the parent side also.
Yes, it will. But I'm sure that CBSE will make it very clear. Right now, they haven't. They've just announced that they're going to be starting this. So let's see.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, time for just a couple of questions, which is we'll take a Milind, your question, and Karishma, your question, and that will be the final for today. Okay? Yeah. Milind, your question, please.
Yeah, hello. Good evening, ma'am. It was a great session. In fact, input every time when I listen to Mr. Gaurav and you, I am simply enriched. And let us come to the question. The question is very clear and simple as learning gap is discussed at every moment. And learning gap is discussed when the children move from one school to other, one Kendriya Vidyalaya to other city, one class to other class. And that is really bothering with the problems when they come to different state to my state and my school. How is that problem resolved at every level?
So you're absolutely right. Remediation is not just a COVID issue. Remediation can be when you're moving from one class to the other, or you're moving from one school to the other. See, when you come from one school to the other, it's our responsibility to first check out where are the gaps. It's important to know, work towards it. But and I'll come to how work towards it. But when it comes to from one class to the other, that's a big question mark on our schools. Why is it that a child should move from one class to the other with huge gaps in understanding. That means something is not right with our assessment pattern and, more importantly, with our teaching pattern. When we have the aim of completing and finishing courses, that's when children stay with gaps in learning. So I always tell my teachers, the whole idea of any assessment is not about a child got 48 out of, say, 100. 48 is okay, whatever, low or high. 48 out of 100. What is important is, where did that 52 marks go for, just to, or let's say 70 out of 100. So where did the 30 marks go? That should be a major area of concern for the child and the teacher. Therefore, making a complete list of what is it that most of the child have made mistakes on, and let us revisit those concepts. Let us probably take a reassessment on it after teaching the children those concepts where there's been a gap. I think in every class, if we do that, our approach towards assessment and the analysis of it, and to fill up the gaps there and then, so that the gaps don't become huge. Because remember, everything is connected to each other. So if a child doesn't understand one particular chapter or a concept, he cannot build on it, and the gap only keeps increasing. So we need to check out gaps on a regular basis. I think our teachers should be trained and told to do that. So if it's a problem of the school, try and handle it regularly rather than waiting for any one final examination to know what is the gap. When my children even move from one class to the other, so if they go from class 7 to class 8, right? They've got their final examination, they've passed and whatever. When they come to class 8, I make them for another week, 10 days, do the class 7 papers and get those solved. Even there, we make up our list on what is it that the child had a gap in class 7, but though he's moved on to 8, he is excited and happy. But as a school, I can't be happy till even those gaps from class 7 moving on to 8 are still not filled up. So again, regularly, if you keep working, your remediation will keep happening. When a child comes from one school to the other, there should be some informal testing in the beginning in whatever format you have. And there should be an extra time given to those children to fill up the gaps in their learning, which is coming from one school to the other, on which you had no control earlier. If we don't do this, children will never settle down in your school. You will have issues of absenteeism, because children are only comfortable and happy in a school if they understand what is being taught. So I think filling up the gaps, say for example, in our school, we have something called a focused activity in which every child is supposed to be a part of a club. So at that time, for the first 1, 2, 3 months, depending on one child to the other, they don't do the focused activity. They are only doing remediation if they come from a new school. So the first, second, third, 3 months, whatever it may be, first we fill up the gap. Then we send the child to the regular classes to see to it that children are comfortable with their concepts. So gap filling, remediation, you need to work it out in your own timetable, in your own system of the school. It's absolutely essential to make children comfortable in their school, in their classes.
Karishma, you have a question? You still have a question since you, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Gaurav.
Good.
Good evening and Jai Hind, ma'am.
Oh, this is Karishma. Yeah, okay. Yes, Karishma.
All right. Ma'am, I mean, my question is on the same line of assessment. Like CBSE was talking about open book examination a few months back. So talking about the same and Bloom's taxonomy, how do you see open book examination balancing understanding and application of knowledge versus the that rote memorization? How do you, I mean,
So
do you think
obviously, rote memorization, Okay, we don't have too much of time, but I can even speak to you, and I think there's a lot of discussion these days. It's not only me, because even NCF
Yes.
mentions about rote memorization. It has happened in India, and it's been happening for years. There are certain things which really, really are done much better through rote, let me tell you. And there are lots and lots of Indian ways of learning which have been through rote, which still has relevance. So I'm not getting into that, but I'm just standing up against the fact that rote has no relevance at all. It would be wrong to say when you read the NCF SE, you'll probably, FS, you'll probably get to read it in that also. Coming back to open book and not really rote memorization in the way that even CBSE says, just a teacher giving you an answer, you without thinking, learning it and reproducing where there is no thought process at all is something that should be completely out of the school system. Whether child is doing something by rote or a child is doing something on his own, it is very important for the child to apply their own mind to understand what they're doing, because it is only that learning which children understand and internalize which is something that is going to remain with the child forever. Otherwise, it has got no relevance for a child at all. So open book is a beautiful method of assessments and challenges teachers on the right kind of questioning method. So even if I have the book in front of me, it actually makes no difference. You'll probably just want to keep the book away because you feel this is exciting and I
It's actually
know the concept and
asking question, how beautifully a teacher has asked the question,
that's
asking the right question. Thank you so much, ma'am. And thank you, Gaurav, sir.
Most welcome. I think Anuba, you have a question, and which should be the final question. I have to go somewhere, and purely, I think Mrs. Varman has to go somewhere as well. Anuba, you have a question? Please ask it quickly. Yeah, I don't want you to get.
Am I audible? Good evening,
Yeah, yeah,
ma'am.
yeah.
Good evening, Gaurav. I was trying to switch on the video as well. Somehow I'm unable to do that. Please pardon me for that. Uh, Ma'am, we were talking of assessments. I've been thoroughly enjoying this session. Uh, there's one question that always loops in around assessment. Is the regular cycle of assessments throughout the year, which normally many schools follow the weekly assessment cycle, like Monday tests, as we call it, vis-a-vis a reduced number of assessments. So I'll be very thankful if you can share some insights on that, especially because we have been also discussing around restructuring the planner, relooking into it.
So, see, I'll tell you from a personal example, we have a system of a weekly assessment pattern, okay? Has been discussed and debated a number of times. And all stakeholders, the child, the teacher, and the parent, despite a lot of debates, have all agreed that having small, informal, what in fact even CBSE says formative, but formative has many other ways, of course, very short informal tests always help the child. That's been my own personal experience, because number one, the stakes are very low. Number two, there's very little I need to do, and therefore I'm doing in-depth work on that particular unit that is going to be assessed. I also have the freedom and the time to assess in different ways. It doesn't have to necessarily always be a pen paper. It can be different ways in which you assess. So I think here it is each to his own. What works for your system? For our system, the weekly assessment system has worked very well without any pressure. The only pressure that the parents have ever come up with is, हमको शादी में जाना है, सारा साल मेरे यहाँ टेस्ट होता है. To which my answer is, a shadi for a child should be more important than an assessment. What are your priorities? If parents or the school builds this culture that everything begins and ends with an assessment, then obviously there is going to be pressure for that particular assessment. So assessments should be taken in a stride. It should be enjoyable. If you miss one, it's okay.
It's
not
okay. Absolutely.
absolutely okay. So it's our approach which actually sometimes pressurizes the students. So I'm telling you our own personal example. This is the way it's worked. No pressure. Take it easy. Enjoy it. but it'll be weekly so that it's small and you can just keep doing it. So by the time it's your half yearly or your annuals, most of the children are actually very well prepared. That's what parents and children both say.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Mrs. Burman. What a lovely start to this conversation. But having said this, I mean, at the cost of repeating myself, so well spoken and so passionately spoken, maza aa gaya. And I have to rush somewhere. So therefore, I will quickly say thank you to Mrs. Burman again and everybody who stayed back. I hope we added value to your time. Thank you very much. Have a great evening ahead. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Take care. Thank you.